welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, V.
And I'm Sean. We interview people in creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
Today we have with us Julian Glander.
Hello.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, perfect. Happy
Awesome.
to be here. Thanks for having me.
Julia, it's like so great to have you on because you've done so much from like looking at your website. You've done game development. You have directed and animated entire shorts by yourself, and you do music. Is there anything you cannot do?
I can't draw. So we're gonna see what happens here. Yeah, really can't draw with my hands.
That's a good. That's a promising start to this drawing podcast. Well, no, you'll do great.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you kind of like, how would you describe like what you do? Because you're like, because I was gonna say like CG generalist, but I feel like that's a little bit reductive.
Yeah, that's
like,
kind of not. It's more like, if I had to put it in one word, I don't know. I guess it's 3D artist. Like I use the program Blender and I make 3D projects across all those different mediums, like you said. I think it's like at the core, it's animation or there's an animation element to almost everything I do. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a Blender guy. I'm a 3D artist. I just do one project at a time, and I've had a very crazy career where I've really bounced around a lot and kind of bounced in and out of the more traditional animation world that a lot of your previous guests have been a part of.
Yeah, which I'm like really excited to talk about because I feel like we're slowly like branching out to kind of more like artists that are like more indie and versatile, and I think that's like super cool.
Well, you're sort of running out of showrunners at this point. You've kind of got them all. So you've got to go to us little freaks on the outside.
Okay, but like you're a director, and I have had this question on my mind for like a while now. Like, you went on Jeopardy.
I went on Jeopardy, yes. I'm glad we're just getting right to it.
And I was like, did you plan the whole singing the alphabet backwards bit? Like, how much thinking
oh my God,
went
yes,
into that?
I planned it a lot, actually. It was like kind of a lot of work. So basically, I think probably most people are familiar with the TV show Jeopardy, but if you're not, it's a television quiz game show. And after the first commercial break, there's a segment where the host talks to each contestant and they give a fun fact about themselves. And the way it works is once you get selected as a contestant, they send you this packet that's like 100 questions. And there's like,
oh my God.
They're like questions you would ask someone on a first date. It's like, do you have a funny memory of a trip to Europe? What was your name of your childhood pet? Was there a teacher that inspired you? Have you ever been arrested? That kind of stuff. Like to try to,
oh my God.
Or like to try to mine an anecdote out of you. And while I was filling out, I remember this thing I used to do when I had. Do you guys remember the Yak Back?
Yeah.
This was a 90s toy, a little recording device where you could record like 2 or 3 seconds of audio and then play it back on like the worst speaker ever. It was shaped like an ear. It was a very cool little piece of plastic. I would sing something and then play it backwards and then like learn how to sing it backwards. So I did the alphabet in reverse on Jeopardy. Yeah, it was actually like, I don't think I could do it now. Like I had to practice it a lot the day of to get it right.
That is so funny. I was wondering if you crafted this bit just for the show.
I did craft it. I lost on Jeopardy, and I think part of the reason is because I spent so much time crafting the bit. And no time.
I kept giving alphabet
studying.
Answers.
Yeah,
I kept giving answers backwards.
I thought there'd be just more alphabet stuff on the board today. So
funny. That is so funny. I love that the guy was like, I mean, obviously they like write the lines ahead of time, right? Like
no,
they knew you were gonna do this
he knew
bit.
I was going to do it, but that his line was ad-libbed.
Because I was like, that is pretty cool. That somebody he like called you, or like he was like, I didn't know this episode of Jeopardy was directed by David Lynch. I was like, that's
yeah,
pretty
Ken
funny.
Jennings he's a badass. He's very smart, obviously, and very quick. Yeah.
Did you get any calls from being on the show afterward, or no, or it was just like a fun little thing?
What kind of calls?
I wonder if like I don't know if it got you attention. I don't
The
know.
alphabet
That's
is
funny.
calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The alphabet is calling. It's like there's the IRS, there's the ABC.
Yeah. ABC wanted me to do a show.
We don't-
We think you'd be great for us.
Yeah. No,
We're
there
not-
was, you know, a little bit of attention online, and I think like USA Today or Good Morning or America or someone had a little thing about it. But
Oh, that's
more just being on
funny.
Jeopardy was it was cool. I don't know. It's not something I ever thought would do because I'm not like a smart guy, you know? But I think anyone who watches the show, or like, I think probably everyone who's watched it has had a night where they're like, I'm smarter than those people up there. Like, so I think
Sure.
if you've had that moment, you should take the little online quiz and see what happens. It could change your life.
That's so funny. Yeah, sorry I went right to this, but I just thought that was so funny.
Well, at the beginning of the podcast, before we started recording, I asked V whether you were the artist that did some 3D work on her shorts, because I was wondering how you guys knew each other, and the answer was no. But it turns out you know the person.
For anybody listening, so yeah, we're inviting Julian just to talk about me. That's the plan of the
I think
pod.
that's fair. I've
No,
had
no, no,
enough
but-
time about my, you know, I've told my one story about Jeopardy, so it's kind of all I've got anyway.
Long story short, I made a short for Cartoon Network within their cartoons program, and I wanted to have CG backgrounds to kind of a little bit like Gumball, but also like to kind of have like nostalgia feel of like these like 90s Cartoon Networks like CG bumpers that I thought were really cool. So we hired Harry Bolero, and you know
Harry's
him,
the
right?
best.
Like did you guys?
Yeah, he I started seeing his work while he was still a student in, I guess this was in 2020. I got to hire him to work on a music video that I was doing for Dua Lipa.
That is so cool.
Hey, and
Yeah.
also
That is
Dua Lipa,
so
just
cool.
a casual Dua
I
Lipa brag.
love Dua Lipa. I was like, please. It was put together by, I think it was Blink was the agency, and I was like, can I talk to her? Like, can I talk to Dua? And they were like, absolutely not. Of course not. I was like, well, I really just want to. But I'll just say, I'll give you my number, and she can FaceTime me when it's convenient for her. I'll answer. You know.
But she really wants to talk to the 3D artist.
Yeah,
working on her
I'm sure she's
video.
got time for that. Like, I don't know if she ever even saw the damn thing, but
Oh no!
I mean,
well,
I think it's like, what I'm imagining is like she's in the makeup chair, and like somebody's like, people are putting like 100 things in front of her, and she's saying yes and no to them, and like that's the context. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Yeah, so I made this little, it was a visualizer video, and there was a element of it that was a little dancing mushroom guy, and I had wanted to work with Harry, and so he animated the dance moves, and they're really good.
Oh my gosh, I need to watch
That's
that
awesome.
video because that's so cool. Then how can you tell us a little bit about like what the process is making a music video like this? So you said you talked to the agency Blank, is that the name of
It's
the
Blink
agency?
Inc. in London.
Blank
I
Inc.
think is the agency. Let me pull up the emails, because here's the thing.
Do-
This was
Do they reach out to you or do you reach out to them? Well, it's kind of like walk us through that process a little bit.
this was deep 2020. I think summer of 2020. So we were all in lockdown. We're all figuring out how to use Zoom. I don't remember this project at all because I'm in such a pandemic fatigue here. But James Papper, who is a commercial director, sometimes in the animation world, and I think sometimes not, we had worked on a couple other commercial things together, and he had been tasked with making like 12 of these videos for Dua Lipa's new album. Like, I think, I don't know if people still do this or if it was kind of a craze, but it was like, you know, the album comes out and there's 12 animated videos for it.
That's crazy. Wow.
It is kind of
Yeah.
crazy. So I know Victoria Vincent did one, and
Oh, she's
yeah,
awesome.
she's
I
awesome.
love her work.
and a bunch of other animators did one. And basically he was like, what do you got for me? And I sent him like 2 or 3 concepts, and they picked the mushroom guy. And it was chill. It was like, yeah, I just kind of picked at it over the course of a month. And it's a very simple video. It's like, it's basically like one shot of this 3D mushroom guy dancing in a 3D model of my friend's kitchen. And yeah, I mean, just a fun process. I think it was a fun project. I think it was like, I think I was
It's hard to remember.
I was going completely just, out of my mind at that point. So I was just happy to have something to do. And again, I was delusional enough to be like, well, Dua Lipa's she must be at home during the pandemic too. She probably needs someone to talk to, like I'm there. Like,
I'm someone to talk
I'm like,
to.
Dua,
I'm going crazy.
I know what you're feeling. I don't like being in lockdown either. Like there's so much in common.
This is like such an like animator, comics, like artist, like perspective. I feel like we all like have our fantasy lives inside our head, and we're like, yeah, like I don't know.
But you know
like,
what?
imagining this like parallel life where it's like this could happen. This is real. Like like the level of delusion that you need.
Sometimes
to, like,
it
keep
does
working.
happen because now you know what? On my feature, I did get to hang out with all these celebrities, and I have all their phone numbers now. We're best
Wow.
friends.
Oh, that is
like, I hung out with them in real life, not Zoom, which was awesome.
that is so cool. I wanted to get to that. Let's just talk about it right now. Tell us a little bit about how that process is like, because you directed, created, you wrote the feature, right?
That is right.
So everybody who's listening to this is probably thinking, I want to do a feature too. How do I do that? So I want to know from the very inception of the idea what that process was like.
Oh yeah, I think anyone who's thinking I want to do it should just do it. Like, and I think people should just do it like by themselves and not pitch something and not wait for a big production company to give them a bunch of money. Like, I think like the same way that you can make a Instagram post or a short film by yourself on your computer or with your friends, you can make a feature film. I started working on this probably 5 years ago. It must have been because it was before the pandemic. I started writing down ideas for this story about a delivery driver. And then I really just kicked the script around in my head and in the notes app for most of that time. And then about 2 years ago, right after I finished Jeopardy, I decided it was going to be my full-time thing until it was done. So the movie is called Boys Go to Jupiter. It's an animated musical coming-of-age story set in suburban Florida. It's very loosely based on my experience as a teenager in suburban Florida. It's about, a boy working as a delivery driver and a number of kind of surreal things that happen to him as he tries to kind of get his life on track at the age of 16. But
you say you like that you decided that was going to be your main job, but the big question is, how do you survive?
How do I survive? That's a good question. Yeah, I think, I had some money because I had just finished directing a special episode of Summer Camp Island.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this was a really special project. On Adventure Time, they used to do these guest director episodes. Right. They had David O'Reilly do one. They had Kirsten Lepore do one. They would, I know there was one other director who did one. And so Summer Camp Island had a lot of the Adventure Time people on it, and they wanted to do the same thing. So basically they let me have the whole production budget for that episode.
That is crazy. Okay, because I know for like an episode like this, I'm not gonna tell everybody about your finances, but for people listening, the union minimums, and I think you can find this on the union website, for a production to be considered union, I believe that it is $500,000 for a 20 minutes.
So I got way less than that.
Yes.
I'll say that much.
Okay.
But it was still, I mean, I'm sure they crossed the T's and dotted the I's and that legally it's fine. But I did not get $500,000, but I got a chunk of money to do this special episode in a very scrappy way that then I could live off of for 2 years while I worked this movie. And on top of that, I had a book deal from my book, I Want to Be a Vase, with Simon & Schuster. And February, I took a month off of the movie to direct something for Adult Swim. And just kind of like, that's how I survived, is that I would just get cash injections from contract work as needed. And okay, but here's kind of the bigger macro, I think a truly practical piece of advice, which is that I was able to live like that cheaply and work on this movie full time because I left New York. Because it's totally not possible to do it in New York. I live in Pittsburgh now. It's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, how'd you like it? And also, I think this is so important that you're saying that, because I do feel for like a lot of us artists who live in New York or LA, like the cost of living are like so expensive. And it's like, if you do want to be like I would say you're an author creator, like, like you're an auteur pretty much at this point of your career. You're
Okay, you said it.
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah.
would.
I mean, like, would you consider sort of like what you do as like there are 3D artists that are like I'm all about learning all the crazy new cutting edge stuff and making it the most realistic possible, or whatever, and they hyper focus into one little aspect of it. But it seems like an extension of the thing that you want to say or the stories that you want to tell, or like it seems like you really do the whole thing, like the whole picture of
Yeah, I
making
think
shorts.
that's a really good way to put it. I think that's hard for some people in the world of 3D to wrap their heads around, because in many ways it's such a kind of macho technical field where there is always new stuff being developed and there's always new things to learn. Yeah, and I think anyone can look at my work and acknowledge that I'm not the technical best 3D artist, and that if I was trying to do that, I would be doing a very bad job. But yeah, I like working in 3D because I have, over the course of a decade, been able to find this visual language and this way of working that's very useful to sort of quickly try out new things.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like so impressive because I do feel like there is like a high level of polish. There's like a level of polish that is, you see it on TV, like, because you've done stuff for Adult Swim, you've done stuff for Cartoon Network, and yeah, and it's professional, and it, gets the point across on it, and you have like a very strong style. Like I would be able to tell, okay, Julian did this, rather than, like, for example, between you and Harry, it's like different styles. You're both CG, you both use Blender, but you're not doing the same thing. Like you have like different details that you pay attention to, like your shape language, your colors, the kind of materials that you tend to pick on your models. So I guess I was gonna say, like, you do have like a strong style. In that sense, I would say a tour, because you also write.
A tour sounds so fancy. Do you feel fancy?
Yeah, I wish there was like an unfancy way to say it, because I do feel like of the different kinds of approaches, that is my approach, which is, my 3D art is very personal, and there is a sense of continuity of expression across all these different projects.
But I feel like you are a person that where something that most people experience in animation is they have to adapt to other people's styles a lot, but you are someone who people come to for your style and the way that you tell stories, and basically like, hey, we want to do something in like, but we want you to do it closer to how you would do it, and here's money. like
yeah,
and that's a rare thing.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for people who want to go down that path, yeah, I'm trying to think of how to say this, but you kind of you have to do it for a long time, and you have to have the style established and really stand your ground on it. Because, especially when you're starting, and this did happen to me a lot at the beginning, it's so easy for people to see you as a technician and see you as someone who knows how to use this software so you can do, what they want you to. And if you want to be a technician, that's awesome. Like, you probably will make more money than me and have an easier career. But I think it's like, yeah, if you don't want to be a technician, a lot of it is about just standing your ground, having like kind of difficult discussions with clients or producers or whoever, or sometimes just saying, I'm not the right person for this project. I'd rather go write comics for a little while and keep kind of developing my own thing.
Do you have an example of that kind of thing where someone approached you and you whether you started it and tried it, but it wasn't a right fit and you had to have a hard conversation?
Not like a horribly hard conversation, but I get a lot of times I will get like a mood board from an agency, and it's clear that it's just like they're just looking for a 3D artist,
okay,
and that they maybe have pulled, and like it's like, it's interesting that you said that you can tell the difference between me and Harry's work, because I actually think most people can't. Like,
I know, because we're artists, and like we can see,
It's,
like, like you guys, like.
But it's like, okay, so I'll get a mood board, and sometimes it'll have Harry's work on it, or Lulu Xiao's work, or Jack Sachs or something, and I'll be like, okay, I get it. Like, I get how in a commercial context all of us are somewhat interchangeable, and then I'll sometimes get a mood board, and it's like the 3D Blade Runner, octopus tentacles, like hot girl stuff,
It's like I do little soft round guys with
I'll get you
pastel
a blob
palettes.
anytime.
Yeah.
When was the moment in your career when you decided that you were gonna stick your ground? Because I feel like that is such a hard thing to do. And I went through that as a student myself, where I was in school and I was just like, I just need a job, whatever it is. And when I was in school, I didn't even think I would pick a craft. I was like, I'll just do anything. I'll even do I'll do in betweens, whatever, and I got lucky that I ended up in boards, and that's what I love. But I think you're a step like further than that, because I feel picking a craft is like so much broader than like picking an entire like style and artistic personality. So can you tell us a little bit about how you came to that?
I don't think there was like a moment. I think it's not really a decision. It's more of a temperament, I think. Like, it's just like something that I really enjoy and I feel more activated by. Because I know the feeling so well of just like coming out of school and being like, I'll do anything. Because I just want a job. I didn't learn anything in school, and I really want to just learn from people and be around people and contribute to something. My background is a little different because I went to school for creative writing.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool. I wanted to be like a copywriter. Like, I wanted to write like catalogs. Like, just like, oh, these khaki pants are great for the office, but they also look good on the golf course.
Wait, that's so interesting. Is that something that you really wanted, or is it just something that you're like, oh, I could do that?
No, I think I didn't want anything. I think I didn't care about anything.
Okay.
Like I really just I wanted to be in a band. Like,
okay.
I grew up playing drums, and when I moved to New York, I was playing in a band with my friends and just trying to like figure something out. And through that, I kind of ended up at this ad agency, and when I was working at the ad agency, I kind of saw how they worked with illustrators, and I thought from the inside, I think I could do that, even though I don't know how to draw. I was just seeing how much of the illustration career is actually just like communication and emails. And like, I thought I could do a better job than a lot of these people we were working with who like did like old school illustrators who are like, I don't want to go on the computer. I'll scan this in and send it to you in a week. No, I don't know. I just
funny.
I did the kind of classic thing. I moved to New York.
Yeah.
I was working this day job. I was playing shows and just doing like 100 different things. Like, I was making VHS tapes with my friends. I was shooting short films, live action, still doing my creative writing. And then like doing animation was just like an outgrowth of that I think came from this very specific moment in time where I would be posting like little graphics to Tumblr, and then I guess like let's put the year on this as maybe being 2012 or 2013. And it was just this sort of phenomenon that started happening where if you had a little animation going on in your illustrations, it seemed to really resonate with people. It seemed to be a lot more interesting. It seemed to go further. And then I think just like what I was playing around with really coincided with the GIF boom.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I remember getting an email from Jess Gilliam saying like, hey, we're starting this site called Giphy in a couple weeks. We're going to launch it. Do you want to be on the artist page? Right. And so like, yeah, so it was just like, I mean, it was just like a special moment there.
There was a little time that was super interesting that there were artists that were just making a living doing GIFs. There were people.
Well, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's like that before then, I feel like that was sort of unfathomable. Everyone was like to make a living doing like a 5-second animation.
Especially because I feel like GIFs went from like, in my head, a GIF was like a terribly crunched up JPEG.
Yeah.
It wasn't really moving yet, or if it was moving, it was 2 frames and they were absolutely awful, or it was like blingy, right? In my head, a GIF was like a blingy or blingy. I don't know how to say
and
it.
I think a lot of people felt that way, and certainly I think there's a lesson here for anyone who's trying to break into something. The illustrators and the animators who were like even just a couple years older than me were like, I'm not touching that stuff,
That's
like
crazy.
I'm not getting into that. New York Times is never going to be commissioning gifts, da da da. And it's like, so I was, and you're right. The tech was really primitive because the internet was still actually like kind of a lot smaller and slower than it is now. And so I was kind of able to artistically develop at the same pace that like this art form was developing.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. I think for me, what's like so cool as well is that you just like kind of went for it because you were in ad agencies and you saw that it was mostly about communication, which I cannot emphasize enough how much people skills are important even in just TV animation, because I mean it's not exactly on the level of like ad agencies, but it's definitely you're constantly doing notes and answering to someone's directions, so that is so on point. And then you were like, oh well, I could like tinker with that. That is so cool.
And also that it seems like your animation and 3D style developed at the same time as this new thing. And like I do think that at the root of all this, what I'm hearing is that you started off like idea and story first. Like you were always doing writing stuff. You were always doing projects, and you were trying to figure out ways to do the projects, whether it's live action or whatever medium it is. I mean, for all we know, like in like 30 years, you're going to be doing like hologram stop motion or something, like whatever, as long as it's telling your story. But that's cool that you settled on 3D. What was this GIF thing? Was that sort of like codified? Yeah, like solidified, like you picking and sticking with 3D, like I have a place here.
I think it was actually kind of picked for me because it was the thing that other people were interested in. It was like looking back, when you're 22, 23, it feels like things are happening so slowly.
That's true.
But like my life changed so much over the course of like 3 months because of like Giphy and like this kind of craze. And then it was like Complex Magazine was like wrote this article that was like, GIF artists are the new rock stars of millennials, and like it had my art in it, like, and then I was having these calls with ad agencies where they were like, we don't get it, but you get it. Can you do something for Starbucks? Can you help us figure out the Tumblr page for Dunkin' Donuts?
That's also so funny because you're literally a musician, and like someone is like, he's a rock star in this other thing.
Yeah.
Besides,
but also
the band
nobody cared about the music I was doing at all, because it was not that good or interesting. So
it's like you're being called a rock star for the wrong thing.
He's the rock star of toothpaste. Yeah. Because what I was doing was like pretty corny, actually. Like little things of like it's.
Wait, how would you describe like what were your inspirations music wise?
Oh, it was like so the band I was playing in with my friends was like a kind of a post-punky, like jangly indie pop band.
Oh, okay.
Like it was really truly nothing special, and it was just not something I was even good at. I would play guitar and sing, and I think I just kind of like I wanted to play that character, of like young musician in New York, and I was not really cut out for it. First of all, it's a lot of work.
So much work.
Yeah.
No money,
But, I mean,
so much work.
It's funny that, I mean, it's okay. It's true. I do believe music is a lot harder in terms of like viability and like income than art is. But art is not the easiest career either. So that's kind of funny.
Not. In comparison, it felt pretty easy though. In comparison to doing like, a whole day's work for 2 drink tickets. But this was actually, I just remembered this. This was like my huge life-changing moment is I had a call with an ad agency with this producer who I can't remember what it was for. I guess it doesn't even matter. But my website was like a mess of stuff. It just had everything on it. It had like poems on it. It had like little listicles I had been writing. It was like, I think there was some part on the website where it was like, I'll walk your dog. Like, but the
just
producer
desperation. just like,
just like
please.
I'll just whatever it is.
Please.
But the producer was like, I'm looking through your site. I see you've got some 2D illustration on here and some 3D. The 3D illustration is more expensive, right? And I was like, that was like a scene from a movie where it like all clicked. I was like, yes. The 3D illustration is more expensive because of the computer.
The computer. It's like that thing where like people try to order the most expensive burger and it's like $1,000 burger and they put a bunch of gold leaf on it, but it doesn't make it. It's like
exactly
not necessarily anything that's like more delicious. It's just
it's
like
better because it's more expensive. But it's also, I think, it's funny to think back because 3D illustration that's like expressive and kind of cartoony or like very personal is everywhere now. Like if you open up the New Yorker, every single issue is going to have a 3D illustration in it. That was so not the case. It was like this whole new thing where if you saw 3D illustration, it was like a technical diagram of like an air conditioning unit or like a missile or something in like.
Well, and also I think when you were saying like 2012 approximately, I remember Blender around that time.
Yeah, Blender sucked when I started using it.
Not only did it suck, but the way they were kind of like advertising it was with these like Pixar-like type of rendering. So when at the time I was watching anything coming out of Blender, I thought like, oh, well, you would want to use the software to do like Pixar type of 3D. I never even thought of doing any, you know what I mean? Like I didn't even think of doing anything differently than like because like you said, I don't think we had any cartoony 3D prior to kind of like the Giphy.
And not that I like invented it. Right, and I think now it's very common to go and look back at like Nintendo 64 as a artistic reference point, or we've even kind of moved past that, and now like PS1 and PS2 graphics are really in vogue.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it just kind of came out of just having fun with it and knowing what was possible, and also it's just like, I mean, I didn't grow up being a great visual artist, but I wanted to make stuff, and I wanted people to look at it, and I was just not able to compete with people who could draw, so I just kind of finagled my own way, I guess.
Well, you found a way to make something more expensive.
Exactly. And look at me now. I want to remark on what I'm doing over here, which is just sort of just filling the page. Just like these,
the little shapes,
just kind of. I think that's probably the best way for me to help out. It's just sort of just add some volume here. I'll switch colors though.
I do love that teeth guy that you drew. Yeah, I think he's awesome.
The tooth monsters is a great prompt. I think there's room for one more over here in the corner next to Gumball.
Nice, dude. I just think it's so inspiring to hear that not only you didn't go to like art school as in like drawing, you went to creative writing, and you are using these skills now. And I kind of want to touch on your feature again. Because you were talking about, okay, you had your notes app, you were kind of writing ideas here and there. I really kind of want to talk about the process. So do you mean that you self-funded it, as in like, okay, you saved some money and you basically used that money to pay yourself over the course of like the 5 years?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest cost, and it's not one that is really accountable. Yeah, because beyond that, everyone that worked on the movie was like so generous. Like, we got my producer is one of my best friends from college. She also worked on it for free. We worked on it together, and she also was able to like get us amazing deals at recording studios, find amazing deals on the mix, like all this stuff. And people wanted to help. It's like when they saw the script and saw the visuals and saw the cast, people were like, oh, we want to be involved in this. So we were able to do it in a pretty scrappy way.
That is so awesome. I love that, like, I think that's very inspiring. And I think that's like how a lot of indie animation gets done. And I think it's cool to kind of talk about like these kind of technicalities. I also kind of want to talk about your process. So are you the kind of person who like goes like step by step, like, okay, I'm gonna write the full script and then gonna storyboard or whatever. Like, what's your process like, kind of?
No, I think what's cool about doing it in small team or by yourself is you don't have to go in a straight line. Like, I'm trying to think. I think I did the whole story on index cards. And those were just whatever it is, the 80 beats of the story with like a sentence or two each. And then I went into Blender and did models of all the scenes. And so like I had these sets basically. And so then when I was writing, I was kind of looking at the sets and looking at some stick figure characters and almost writing it more like a play where it's like, well, I'm looking at the script, but I'm also looking at where the characters are going to be and where the camera's going to be, and did those things concurrently. And then like wrote some music. I think there's 8 or 9 musical numbers in the movie. I honestly don't even know where those came from. I think it's like, the whole thing's like a blur. Yeah, I mean, basically, I took a really long time to write the script because I enjoyed it so much. I wrote the first bulk of it. I wrote 4 pages a day for like a month. So that was 120 pages over the course of a month.
That is a lot. Wow. Like, I would just want to put it out there.
That is a decent amount.
I actually don't think it is in like script format, because it's like you can make those lines go by really quickly.
That's true.
If you're not, and I was so just focused on getting those 4 pages and not focused on quality at all. And that first draft sucked.
Okay, so that was your vomit draft. It was kind of just like anything that's in my head, I put on the page. That's great.
But this was that was the first time I had done something like that. I had previously just really gone straight through things, and not done a lot of revising. And that was how I was able to do things so fast in the past. But yeah, I just did draft after draft after draft. And then finally, when I thought it was good enough, I started reaching out to some of my friends to act in it. And then we pulled together this great cast, and we recorded all those voice parts last summer.
How did you get the voice actors to sign on? Because you do have some more well-known names amongst your cast. Like, are they people that you knew? Did you like reach out to them? Like, how did that go about?
It's a mix. Well, who do you like in the cast? And I'll tell you the specific story.
Like Joe Pera?
Yeah. Okay. Everyone wants to know about Joe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, awesome. He's just one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. It's funny because I kind of didn't realize how big of a deal he was. Like, when I announced the cast, so many people were like, Joe Pera's in this. And I was like, yeah, it's Joe Pera. Like, I have known him for a really long time. I think we were Twitter friends.
Okay.
I had seen him do stand-up like 10 years ago. And so we were Twitter friends, and I'd seen his whole rise and him getting his show and everything.
He has a cult following, It's like a niche.
Right. I think I'm with those people who feel like he's like their friend. Like, he's such a special person, and he's doing something that no one else is doing. And you watch his show and you really feel like you know this person and that he's being honest with you. And and I think another reason people are excited about him is because he doesn't do a lot of this kind of stuff. Like, he really just does his own stuff, and he was in the Pixar movie. But yeah, I mean, he's just a cool guy, and I messaged him on Twitter and said, would you look at this? And he just signed on, and we recorded it in an hour. Yeah, Joe Pera rocks. His part in this movie is so good. I'm kicking myself. Yeah. I'm wishing I had written him a bigger part, but I kind of thought, my thinking was that for some of these people that they're more likely to do a small part if they don't have to bear the burden of promoting this movie and being the face of it. And
I mean, I've also been a fan of Chris Fleming for a long time. Like,
Chris Fleming.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's so good. And my question with him and with Joe was, like, are these people the real deal? Like, what's it going to be like?
Like when you get into the booth with them or whatever.
When I met Joe, I was like, what if I meet him and he's like talking really fast? Like, and Chris, I had a mutual friend. And so I reached out and was introduced through them.
That's cool.
And he came in and just like, he does these like long monologues where he's like in his car and just talking. And you're thinking, like, I watch this and I'm like, he must do 100 takes of those, right? Like he must write this out and then say it because it's just so sharp.
Is that just how he talks?
But no, that's just how he is. He came in and we had written some stuff for him, and he just improv for an hour, and like almost everything in his in his part in the movie is improv. And I was wishing I had I was just wishing I had more time with him. You know, we had an hour of studio time with him, and it was like the best hour of my life.
I've recently been recording a bunch of voice actors, and I've really come to appreciate the skills to improvise, especially in a situation where you want characters to really feel like friends, or when you want them to like be joking around or feel natural, and to have like that balance in between, like them saying what you want them to say to hit all the beats that you need to hit, but also having some moments that feel conversational and honest. Like, man, it's really, it really brings something extra.
Oh yeah,
even past
and
what
I'm
you
like,
write.
I couldn't do it. Like, I absolutely, I think like there's a huge part of the job where it's just, and what I kind of always thought it was before really getting into this stuff. I thought that like kind of the physical qualities of your voice were all that it was, you know, like, you have a deep voice. And sometimes it is like that. Sometimes you just cast someone and the voice is just perfect and it doesn't matter how they do the lines because it's just the exact right thing you need.
Yeah.
But like, and we cast this whole movie very naturalistically, where like we didn't even listen to people in cartoons or movies. Like, if I was thinking about someone, I wanted to hear them on a podcast or doing stand up or just like on the phone, you know? But to be able to be like, I'm on a huge power trip when I'm directing voice actors, because I have the little button and I got the guy who can bring me a Diet Coke if I want it. And it's like, but beyond that, it's like to say to someone like, hey, can you be 10% sadder for me? You know?
That
like,
is so funny.
Oh, can you do it can you do it just a little slower? And then they do it. And it's like,
you're like, I'm a puppet master. You know, like,
I love that you guys are like, I feel that's so funny, because I feel when I was voice directing, I listened to the voice actors and I'm like, holy shit, they're so good. They come up with all this funny stuff, and it's really hard for me to actually ask them to do another take.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate that. I'm sure
they
they love that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to get feedback. And so if I was making myself that vulnerable in the booth and like doing a sad scene, and I was getting any feedback that was basically like, you're not doing this right, I'd be like, okay, you hate me, you know? Okay.
They want me to be sadder, and it's working.
You want me to be sadder, it's working, but it's not coming through. And I would spiral completely. You know, I would just shut down. So I really, I want to be the best voice director I can be. It's a huge responsibility, and I always want to do the best job I can and be like sensitive and make sure everyone's having a good time and make sure everyone knows how much I appreciate them, because it's really like a crazy job.
How often had you done recording and directing people voice acting before this feature?
Well, my first time doing it was Summer Camp Island.
Okay.
And I wrote the script, and then they were like, what do you want to do about voices? And I was like, I just hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
And the voice acting director, casting director, Christy Reed, who is the director on that show, is like incredible. And she kind of helped me. She really just taught me everything. She taught me, I really wanted to be involved. I was like, CC me on everything, but she taught me how to reach out to people's agents, how to, how to put together a pitch, how to do this. And then she walked me through the sessions, and she was like, we're going to kind of direct these together. And so I learned how to direct from her.
If you were to give anything, if you were to give any piece of advice to like if there's someone listening if there's someone listening right now, like if there's someone listening to this right now, if you were to give any piece of advice to like reaching out to someone to like work on a cartoon that you're making, is there something that maybe you could say that you learned from her?
Yeah, I think one thing, it was a little easier with Summer Camp Island because they're coming from the entity of Cartoon Network, and so there's some legitimacy. Sure. I think the thing that worked for us on the movie, and we actually had a consulting call with Christy as we were doing the casting. She basically said, give them as much material as possible. Give them the script. We put together a trailer, and I think I think that's the advantage that animation has, is you can actually be done with the project before the voice actor comes in sometimes, and that makes it really easy for them to say yes. So I think the thing with anytime you're working with anyone is come prepared. Like,
did you have, so when you were working with your voice actors, were they matching to the animation, or were they just kind of reading from the script? I'm asking because these are two ways of doing it, right? In Japan,
like an
in the
ADR.
Worthy Kid. In the Worthy Kids episode, he actually kind of described how when his cartoons got dubbed into Japanese in Japan, they match the voice acting to the animation, and and that's part of the skill and what makes a good voice actor. So I was just kind of wondering how you went about it, Julian.
Well, I've done it both ways. On Summer Camp Island, it was pandemic crunch. We didn't get the people into the booth when we needed to because of COVID-19 pandemic. So it was like I did a scratch version of the whole episode. And so they didn't I don't think they had the scratch in front of them. I think they just read and I jammed it in later.
Yeah, retimed a little bit, and
Yeah, I think, and what's good about that is you already know how everything needs to fit in when you're in the session. You know, you're not going to be surprised by anything. You're basically, if someone reads a line that's too slow, you just say, I already know that's not going to work. Can you do it again for me faster? And it's easier. Sure. And there's no surprises. And if you do your own scratch and you play it back and you don't like it, you can change it. Versus if you record all the stuff and it's not fitting together, there's not a ton you can do unless you can get another session. So I honestly don't know which way's better. I think if you could go back and forth with people, that would be the best. You know, if you could have your voice actors come in at the beginning, do it, and then know that you had another session at the end. And we did a little bit of that. We did re-records with Jack Corbett and Grace Kulenschmidt because there's big characters and we just needed a few things. But I definitely think one thing is before your session, or really before you even reach out, you should record your whole script in your own voice and do read alouds with your friends and stuff, because you'll catch things that sound really weird that don't look weird on paper.
That is so true. Oh my God. Like, I feel that's like taking a couple of writing classes is something that they tell us all the time. They're like, read it out loud, read it out loud. That's the only way you can tell whether or not you wrote something that sounds weird. And writers don't want to do it because writers
I hate it.
Yeah.
It's painful. It is so, and that's the thing is like, well, I had my moment of being vulnerable where I sent my script out to these people and they read it and they had the power to crush my heart. And then they get in the booth and they're very vulnerable. And then I go back and it's very painful to hear your work read out loud. And I think that's when you know if it's working or not, obviously. But it's funny because it's the thing I thought I was getting away from, because in video games, play testing is a crucial part where you watch people play your game and you can't say anything, and you have to be like holding it in, be like, don't go in that door. Oh, you weren't reading the instructions, you weren't paying attention to the tutorial, so now you don't know what to do. It's like so painful. And I was like,
wait, were you sitting watching people play the game? Like, kind of like, have you seen that documentary, like Jiro Dreams of Sushi, where he's like the sushi master watching carefully people eating his sushi? Were you like that with your game?
Were you like watching people on Twitch or something? Like what?
Well, by the time people were playing it on Twitch, it was too late and there was nothing I could do. But I did a mix. I had friends and family play it, and that's good because if you have people who are not gamers, that's good. And then I sent it out to about a dozen people and asked them to screen record.
Okay.
But it is painful to watch someone not play the game the way you want them to, and to be like, well, is there anything I can do about this? How much can I simplify this? Is this my artistic vision, or am I just being a little bit prickly?
I feel like you sound like a DM who had a story that you were really excited about. You planned.
That is exactly what it is.
Players do not want to do that, and you're like, but I have like 2 hours planned for this part.
Exactly. And I think my thinking was, well, with a film, everyone watches it the same way, so that's one less thing to worry about. They just put the movie on. But that's actually not true at all, because people look at their phones, they go to the bathroom and don't pause the movie. They watch it in 10-minute chunks before they go to bed.
You really got to idiot-proof it.
Well, I don't know. It's a hard question of like, is there a way to make this, whatever the through story is, really clear without compromising anything?
Right.
Are you talking about the movie or the game now?
I'm talking about the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm kind of in that it's gonna Yeah, so I just finished up this kind of process of like doing a couple screenings of just having people watch it and sitting next to them before I send it off to the Tribeca Film Festival where it's going to play. And it's like, it actually, there's something so weird that happens. And I think you guys probably know this if you've ever done this. You can sit with someone, and even if they're not saying anything and not giving feedback and not like even blinking or moving, you can tell what's not working in a way that you can't when you're watching it by yourself. Like just having that other person there, it's like, I now know that the music in this scene is wrong in a way that I couldn't see before.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because when you're making it, you're thinking about all those micro moments. But I feel like with something longer like that, you're really like you can see the peaks and valleys of like when like a big joke comes, or when the big music hits, or when like if there's like an awkwardness like in between some sections. That's what? How would you describe that? Is it just like in like seeing like them like smile or their body language? Like how do you describe
it's not
that?
even them. I think it could be a catatonic person, you know. I think it's more it's just the way that you feel knowing that someone else is watching it.
All of a sudden you're like self-conscious. It's like before you were just talking to yourself in a room by yourself, and now you're actually talking to a person, and you're like, oh, I'm an idiot.
And you're like, oh, this is how it's going to feel in a room full of 150 people if I don't fix it. Or this is great. This is exactly how I want it to feel.
How do you, so it's funny because you said it's just like having another body in the room, but like, how do you know when to let go? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people struggle with when they're working on personal projects. They're perfectionists. They keep editing, revising, finagling. What's your...
Well, I totally get it. And I think if I was going to live forever, I would work on this movie forever, you know? Or, you know, but it has, you know, a movie is made to be seen. And I think you can dull your excitement of sharing things with the world by working on them for too long. I think, like, you know, when you go to the eye doctor and it's like, is 1 or 2 better? Is 3 or 4 better? And you get to that point where you can't tell the difference, but you're like, let's go back and forth between 5 and 6. And you're going back and forth over and over. Like, that eye test moment is when it's time to move on, because you're making arbitrary decisions. Like, I think, you know, I think it's fun to tinker. It's fun to say, should this guy's hat be purple or pink? But, you know, I think it's an eyes on the prize thing. And I think part of it is just like having stuff on the calendar, because we had this festival deadline that we had to hit. And that was really the big motivator, was getting it to Tribeca in time. And then they saw a rough cut of it. And then when they said they wanted to show it, we were like, okay, we got 3 months to really get it done.
Holy cow. That's crazy. How did you... Okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit. So the movie wasn't done before you reached out to Tribeca and said that you wanted it to show. So how's that process? Because you know, we come from TV. I've never done that, so I'm curious how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done it before either, but my understanding from talking to a couple people that are festival programmers is that they see stuff that's, you know, they're looking at stuff 6 months out from the festival, and they're used to seeing stuff that's not done. So in the live action context, they're used to seeing some shots that have the green screen in them still with the tennis balls floating around, and they're really used to hearing bad ref sound mix. And, you know, I think they're able to fill in the gaps, you know, or hopefully your story is strong enough that they can just say, well, it's going to be like this, but 10% better. So, I mean, that is kind of what we sent off to them. It's like, it's not a rough in that it was like unanimated, you know, just like doodles. It was just like, it was a completed movie that I knew how I needed to make better. You know, and that also just needed a few layers of polish.
How does that feel, though? Because a lot of the times when you submit to festivals, they also have the power to say like no, thank you. Usually, I think so. So how does that feel, sending off something unfinished to a festival for them to be like, we can picture this being good soon, like, you know?
Right. Well, in this context, I mean, if I put a percentage on it, I think what I sent them was like 90% done.
Okay.
And it was like, it was something where I would say, like, if this had to screen, it could screen.
Okay.
Like,
so you're pretty confident. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think what it was is really, it's like, I mean, I kind of took a flyer on it. Like, Tribeca's a great festival, and I wasn't like feeling like that was really going to happen, you know? Like, it was more like, as I was working, you know, these festivals happen all year, and that was the deadline came up to submit it, and I said, I think this is like, I think it's ready enough to finally submit it somewhere, and just keep working on it. And if they say no, it just means it needs more work. And then they said yes, and I was like, okay, I guess this movie is good.
That is so cool. I love that, like, you were able to get a deadline thanks to a festival approving it for screening. I think it's pretty powerful and cool in the sense that, like, it's not like entirely like a self-imposed deadline. But
well, it's hard to keep those deadlines because it's so easy to look at it and say, well, there's another one in 2 weeks, because it you know, it's the festival stuff is year long. You know, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think the other thing is my producer, who again is a friend that I've had for 15 years now. We were in the band together. She just like kept me in line, and I think like was able to just like talk me into it and say like, hey, you know, it's done. Like, or like,
oh, so if it wasn't for her, maybe you would still be like going with it right now.
I don't think there would be a movie without her. I don't think, like, when I tried to recruit her into this, I said, hey, I have this script. I want you to help me with the voice actors. If you don't want to do this, like, there's no one else that I really trust to do it. And I think if I had tried to do it all myself, I just would have failed and burnt out and not gotten the great cast and not been done with the movie, you know, and I probably would have run out of money and had to go do something else for a while.
That's crazy. That's super cool.
I'm very lucky. Yeah. I mean, it's really cool to have people like that. And so I'm Payson, my producer, is kind of the star. She really made it happen. I don't want to talk too highly about her because she's going to get snatched away. Like, you know, she's going to go on to really big things after this. So.
But she's always late to meetings. And yeah, you have to balance it out with like a few
yeah. What's the? Oh, she smells terrible.
Only Zoom calls.
Yeah, exactly. No, you see the stink lines even on those. Oh, she's me in a wig.
That's so funny.
Yeah, she's gonna love you coming on this podcast and talking about how stinky she is.
Yeah, I would say we could. We'll leave that in. We'll leave that in.
I think I think it's really great that you talk about bringing on a producer on the movie, because it's something that we don't really think about sometimes as like artists. We're like, oh, I can do it all. I don't need somebody to keep me in check.
I was that person for a long time, and it's just, if you can find the right person, it's better, obviously.
How did you come to the conclusion you needed to? I mean, obviously she's your friend, but also like, how did you kind of come to that conclusion? Like, oh, I need somebody to keep me on track, kind of thing.
I think it happened kind of in an unexpected way, or kind of organically, where I really didn't know that she would be such a big part of the movie. So we met in college. She was actually the producer on this late night talk show that I was the host of. And
what was it called?
We met then. It was called BU Tonight. It was Boston University's late night talk show. It's been scrubbed. You're not going to find it. You could try all you want. It's gone for the best.
All right, internet sleuths, break out your keyboards, hack into the archives.
Pace and I had been friends for a long time, and we were in a band together. We had worked on little projects together. She would rope me in to do graphics on something she was producing and whatever. And I always knew she was really good. And I always felt like I really wanted to work with her, and I just didn't have anything that was like good enough or big enough. And then I thought like, well, this could be it. And so I asked her, like, I really just need someone to help me kind of coordinate these recording sessions. Okay. Like, will you help me with reaching out to these people's agents and getting the paperwork sorted out? And I know you know all these recording studios and whatever. Will you help me with that? And she just like jumped in. And we were having so much fun and worked so well together that she just ended up like really taking on so much more, from just managing, like, you know, putting everything together for this festival, you know, dealing with sales agents, dealing with the post-production stuff. And I just had her also just bounce stuff off of, because she really understood the material. And, you know, things would happen where we'd get an email from someone and we wouldn't even have to talk about it. She'd be like, I already know how you want to respond to this, you know?
Oh, nice.
Like, you know, I already know you know, that's when you know someone that long, it's like, I already know you're going to say no to this. I already know you're going to be interested in this. Like, yeah.
That is so cool.
So pretty cool.
I like that your process is very organic, and it does feel like you said at the very beginning. Because when you said like, oh, if you want to do a feature, just do it, I was like, I call bullshit on this. But now I listen to the story, I'm like, okay, yeah.
Well, here's what I think. I think, like, what's the longest thing you've worked on?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I would say it's probably my webcomic. I started 2020, so it's been a little bit like 4 years. But it's very recent that I was able to stay focused on a project that long.
Yeah.
Creative block.
But I think if you can do that, you can math it out.
True.
You know, because for me, it was like, really, when I finished Summer Camp Island, I was like, if I can do 10 minutes, I can do it 9 times in a row and have a feature.
That is so true. That is so true. I think
it's a crazy thing to think. It's not. It's actually not true.
It's so hard.
It's like when you run a 5K and you're like,
exactly. It's like, well, I'll just do 10 of these in a row. No, I actually had to retrain a lot of my brain. I had to learn a lot of discipline, because actually, you're right. Like, a short film is more of a sprint. You can exhaust yourself over the course of 2 months and then just like take a long time to recover. With this one, I really had to just do it slow and steady.
What would you say is the hardest jump between the short film, so like the Summer Camp Island episode, to the feature? What was like the biggest learning curve for you?
I think that's a great question. I think some of the hardest things about it are just leaving behind like the speed of the kind of instant feedback that you get, especially going from like doing illustration and comics and stuff. Like, I think letting go of this thing of like, I'm going to get a dopamine hit every single day because I'm going to have something new to share every day. That was actually like, you know, that's just like, that was a bad addiction that I really wanted to break anyway. You know, because I was really feeling like, well, it's not hitting anymore.
I mean, especially coming from ads. Yeah. I mean, especially in ad work, half the time, like, you send them something every single day, multiple times a day, sometimes even. Like, there's a lot of communication. So to be, like, just left alone, like, you go into hibernation and work on a project for a long time, like, that's a whole other discipline kind of thing.
Well, I was ready to go away. But I was really scared that I was going to disappear, and then when I came back, no one would care, that everyone would forget about me, and like, you know, that the world would move on, and that by the time I finished this, it would be something that nobody wanted anymore. Luckily, that doesn't seem to be the case. Luckily, it seems like you actually can go away for 2 or 3 years and people will still remember you.
Yeah, we're tired of 3D now. We don't like GIFs anymore.
No, it's kind of true. I mean, the GIF boom is over for sure.
That is so interesting. Yeah, no, I'm so happy you're talking about this, because that's something that I'm personally like struggling with right now. Like, for my webcomic, the algorithm has changed so much between the moment I started from now. And it was crazy because when I started, the algorithm was pretty stable, but it wasn't really pushing my content. And then I went through a year where it pushed it like crazy. And I was like, holy shit, like, I'm on top of the world. And then I took a hiatus, and the algorithm changed again. And now I can barely get the type of engagement that I got like 2 years ago because of the shifts. And it's really tough. I think as an artist, it's really tough to take distance from those numbers, the feedback. And I think the question would be, so for you, how, I don't know, like, because you talked about like trying to get away from the dopamine addiction, like believing, having faith that people will remember you 3 years after. Can you tell us a little bit, like, emotionally how that was like for you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it was I had to find my dopamine elsewhere. So I got 2 baby ducks, and
So cute.
yeah, they're awesome. And I garden a lot, and I just stepped away from work a little bit for a little while and just tried to balance my life a little more. I went on Jeopardy, and that was really a whole thing of like retraining my brain and like studying for that, and taking the trip out to LA for that.
How
And
did
I
you
think
study for that? Like, do you have like a book for
there
that?
is a
How did you-
huge community of kind of Jeopardy
No way.
people, obviously. Like
That is
anything,
so
there's a
funny.
subculture where it's like there's different philosophies on how to study, how to play. I have this book. It's 75 pages. It's called Secrets of the Buzzer. It's just about how to ring the buzzer.
What?
Yeah. So I went deep into the Jeopardy world, and I just did a lot of I just did a lot of reading. Like I just read a lot of classic literature and world history and like whatever. And again, with a grain of salt, I did get my ass handed to me. I got destroyed on Jeopardy.
Quick little literature highlight. I like to whenever a guest is down to talk literature, I'm always kind of excited. What was in the process of preparing for Jeopardy, what were some of the highlights from the literature you read?
You know what? I got really into Shakespeare.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
He's awesome. I mean, there's some great stuff.
Yeah.
And it's cool to read like Macbeth or something, and it's like, oh, like half of these lines are just like pieces of pop culture, or like pieces of, or like things we say now. Like
I was there was
like
a moment I was like,
WTF. Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
I was reading a lot. I mean, I don't know. I think he's canceled now, Joss Whedon, but I was really like reading a bunch of stuff about him because I love his writing on Buffy, and he's like a big Shakespeare guy as well. It was like a big foundation for his writing.
I have a quick question about the ducks. If you were to convert the conversion rate in between the dopamine hits that you get from a certain amount of followers to ducks, is it like like for every 25,000 followers, one duck you should get? If anyone in the chat wants to get
I'll say this right. I have 2 ducks. I have 50,000 followers on Instagram. I would give up the followers before I would give up the ducks. I'll say that.
Okay.
So
okay.
they're So at least a little bit more than 25,000 followers each. Yeah.
So cute.
So if you want to get ducks, now you know the duck math.
They're awesome. They lay eggs. They're very sweet and social.
What are their names?
Fun.
Are they smart? I wonder. Like,
no.
No. Okay.
No.
Can you teach them tricks? No.
You can teach them little routines. They love routine, so they love for the same thing to happen in the morning and at night, and you can get them to associate you with treats and whatever.
Aww.
But they're not not geniuses.
On the scale of sounds, how would you rate the sound of duck feet on a hardwood floor?
No, it's awesome. They don't come inside anymore though.
No.
The poop.
No, I got you.
Yeah, duck feet are especially when they were little babies.
Plop, 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 plop,
yeah.
plop. I like that sound a lot.
We have a lot of questions from followers that I think would be really great to get into, and I think we're gonna kind of like ping back and forth between the questions and like more of the interview. But I feel like we kind of skimmed over some of your work for Gumball and Summer Camp Island. Unfortunately, our audience is there to remind us. So our patron Puzzle Glum asks, what was your favorite part about directing on the amazing world of Gumball?
I really liked working with Ben. He's really sweet. Basically, the way that worked was I met him at the Pictoplasma conference in 2016, and I showed my short film Bloop's birthday there. And I guess that's where the Cartoon Network saw it as well, and they picked it up for development, kind of a side story.
Oh.
But it's obviously it's not a show, so that's the end of that story.
Like, it's really cool that you had a short, so that screened at a festival, and then the Cartoon Network was interested, and there was a development deal. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process was like?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I think you've had a lot of people on here who have talked about how Cartoon Network does things, and it was pretty typical. They saw the short, we worked on the outline, the pitch bible, the storyboard for a pilot, and then it kind of stopped at that phase. Basically, it just didn't go any further.
Do you think that it was like, was there like a merger? Was it like an external kind of like consequence, or was it just kind of like...
I have thought about this a lot, because I really, you know, I was like 25 when this happened, and I really was like, this needs to work for me. Like, you know, like, I think it's a crapshoot, you know? It's like these networks see a lot of pitches and they can't develop them all. And, you know, part of it was that people leave and the development people don't stick around. And part of it was that I don't think I did the best job selling myself. Like, I think I was probably not fit to be a showrunner at that point. I was really young. I had never worked on a show, and they were actually like really cool. They were like, "Well, we want you to work on some of our shows. You know, we want you to work as a writer or something to kind of learn how this works before you do a show." So I think that kind of folded into the Gumball thing.
Nice.
That's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to get a gig, obviously. But yeah, Ben is awesome. He saw my short, and then he like wrote a specific sequence in the show based on what he thought I would want to animate. So like,
it's really cool.
You know, it's like, it's like, I look back and I'm like, I cannot believe like how lucky and cool of an opportunity that is. Like, for him to do that for me is like, I was just like a kid. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's so cool. And yeah, like they boarded it out and like even did an animatic, and then I basically just did the 3D version of it. And again, we did it really fast. Like, I think I had a month to animate that sequence.
Wow,
and it's like,
that's so
3
fast.
minutes long.
Yeah, holy moly, that's
Whoa.
crazy.
I don't recommend doing that. I was taking caffeine pills.
Yeah, I
and
think you
just,
can only
like,
do that with
ripping
3D.
through it.
I think.
Yeah,
like
that's
getting some
probably
rigs
true.
and stuff.
Or you
That's
could do,
crazy.
you know, puppets or just bad
Yeah,
drawings, I
maybe.
guess.
You might be right. Yeah.
Well, because I feel like I've worked previous guests of the show, Victor Courtwright. He can animate like an insane person. He animates so fast. I think he could probably pull off 3 minutes in a month. But that's like there's like some 2D animators that are just kind of like brr.
Oh yeah.
But it is an insane amount of work in any kind of medium
Actually,
that you pick.
that's what I have to do for this Adult Swim web series. Actually, my
I know,
schedule
I was
is like
thinking
it's like 3 minutes in a month for sure.
Oh, I think
I
it's
was thinking-
possible.
Yeah,
I can do
Sean,
it,
like
yeah.
you do this all the time. Like you do this all the
It's
time.
I mean it's hard. And
Yeah.
thinking about it abstractly, I'm like don't. Like, so yeah, hearing about 3 minutes in a month, that's yeah. I mean that is a feat to be proud of that you.
I honestly don't.
accomplished it.
I don't know. I don't really remember how we did it. I had a lot of support from them. I mean, they were just
That's
like
awesome.
they just teed it up for me to do, you know, to do my thing, and like that is so special to get that. And things are, you know, it's like my job is easy because it's set up that way. You know, because I don't have to, you know, learn a new style and learn a new set of expectations every single time. You know, like Summer Camp Island's another great example where it's like, well, I had seen the whole show and I watched them all again, and so I wrote something that I thought was in the world of the show, but they just gave me such a long leash to play around on.
I was wondering about that. Like, did they give you an outline, or did you like write like a full like spec script? What was that process like?
I was trying to remember this morning. I think what happened was I had a call with well, I'd known Julia forever, and I had done little things for the show. I had done some title cards. I actually did a board test when they were first putting together the show, and it was not very good. Like
what was the test, or a writing test, a board
it
test?
was a board test. It was like complete a scene, you know.
Okay.
And I think what happened was I did a board test, and then I also included a little 3D model of Oscar and Hedgehog as like the cover page to my board test.
Oh,
And
nice.
Julia was like, I'm addicted to looking at that. Like, I love that. So from that point, we had been talking about, well, how are, you know, is there some way to do the 3D Summer Camp Island thing? And then finally, in season 4, there was time for it. And the way it worked was I had a meeting with them. I pitched them, I want to say maybe just 10 one-paragraph episode ideas. And there were 2 of them that we all really liked. One was the underwater one, and the other one was there's this show within Summer Camp Island. It's like a soap opera called Gander High. And I wanted to do an episode of that show.
No, that's awesome.
But so we decided on this underwater episode. We had like probably a 2-hour chat where we kind of like talked it out. like, oh, how would Oscar get underwater? Oh, what would he see there? And we just like joked around. It was so fun. And then I wrote that episode on my own in script format, which again is like, that's awesome that they let me do that, because everything's board driven at Cartoon Network, and that was just like, it's just like not, it was never going to be a great fit for me because it's not my background, and it's not something I'm especially adept at. And anyway, I brought the script to LA, and we did a read with the whole writing team, and like I assigned them all voices, and like I made them sing and stuff. It was so fun. And then they gave me like notes on that, and I think the thing I brought in was like, I wrote like a huge script, it was like 20 minutes long, and we cut it down to 10 minutes. And
nice.
They gave their amazing notes, and the standards and practices was like, they have to wear life jackets. but and then it was like, they were like, yo, go do your thing. And I think partly because it was the pandemic, there was just less supervision on everything. There was just like, if anything can get done, that's great. And I just ripped through it over the course of the whole summer, basically. So again, that was probably about 3 minutes a month. It was probably a little less than a minute a week.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's crazy.
A computer does the whole thing, you just
don't say that. People are going to believe the animators just push the button.
I do want to ask though, because you make things from start to finish and you don't draw very much, what is your storyboarding process like? Have you made a storyboarding process that uses rough 3D assets where you do placeholders and stuff?
I have in the past. That's what I did for my show at Cartoon Network.
Okay,
I did 3D boards. It just was I'm looking back, and it was a very clunky and weird system.
Okay.
And I think they were kind of looking at that like, what is this? Why is this kid not like doing things the way we want him to? And I don't blame them at all. I mean, it's just like, I wasn't getting with the program. But for Summer Camp Island, they were like Julia and Cole Sanchez were very cool with it, but we had to run it up to the top of Cartoon Network. So I did thumbnail boards, and then my wife, who was also an artist, did the storyboards.
Oh, nice.
And they're actually amazing. They're like they're so sweet, and like they're actually more alive, and like they have more character than the episode even does. They're like so fun.
Sounds like you make a good team.
Yes, it's I guess. No, it was awesome. She did a really good job with them, and I think I posted them on Twitter, but they're probably I don't know if they're even up there anymore, but maybe I'll post them again because they actually are really good. But yeah, so for that one we did the boards, and it was helpful to block out the shots. And my feeling with boards is always, and I know this makes me a freak in the animation world, I feel like once there are boards, everything after that is just like following instructions. And that's really hard for me to like stay excited about.
I know exactly what you mean, because I do feel like that's probably why. It's funny that you say that, and Sean and I were both like board artists.
Well, I think that's why the board artists are the stars, because it's like that's where the decisions are made.
Exactly. I mean,
but thinking about other ways to do it feels crazy. But yeah,
I think in a production pipeline, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because I kind of get it though, because when I worked on something like Wings of Fire, we did not storyboard at all. Because we were doing everything in Blender. So I think it's a process more similar to what you're doing, Julian, where it's like, here's your set, here are your characters. Now, just block out.
Exactly. It's more like shooting live action.
Yes.
Because the first time I was ever on a set was on that late night talk show, and we shot at 3 camera. And so actually, like, that's how I do a lot of my scenes is I'll do the wide and then do the inserts as needed. But it's just a different way to do it. And it's also, I mean, there was some other really cool ways where I wanted to keep things open-ended, where like in the script of this movie, like there's parts where I just put in like, I just wrote in text like beautiful moment here. And like I was just like, I'm just gonna leave that, and I'm not gonna know what it is, and then like when I have everything else, that'll be a point in the movie that needs a beautiful moment, and I'll just do it without,
That seems very live action too, that way of writing, because I do feel like live action leaves the set open for more like how might you call it, like not just improv, but like impromptu, I guess, like little sparkles of
of like spontaneous moments.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think again, it like that comes from preparation where if you know what needs to get taken care of, then you have room. Where it's like, I mean, you know, you said this earlier, it's like when you have your voice actor, there are certain things they need to say. You know, there are certain things where it's like, well, there's specific, is there a specific number? Is there a specific point to the scene? But then outside of that, there actually is a lot of room sometimes, or there's a lot of different ways to do something. But you can't be loose unless you have everything taken care of, because you just end up with a mess. And I've done that too.
Oh yeah, would you
Where
say
it's like when I used to shoot live action films with my friends, I remember one time we just had the best day ever. You know, we were laughing the whole day. We were cracking each other up on the set. We were saying these, you know, giving great performances, doing brilliant things. And then you come home and I'm in Final Cut Pro by myself and it's just mush, you know? Like,
Yeah, because I feel like with 3D,
Oh my
you can
God.
sort of set up like, it's almost like a little diorama or a dollhouse, and like you have your
Yeah.
little guys in there. And I think that works extra well with 3D versus 2D, like not needing to rely on storyboards quite as much, and doing like a hybrid of almost what you would do with like a live action thing. And I hadn't really thought about that before. That's an interesting way of working. It's almost like for me, I get that sort of like, I'm going to put off this moment to keep it exciting later when I'm writing a script and I say like montage dance sequence, and then I just like put that in the script, you know?
yeah. Well, musical numbers are great for that too. Yeah. Where it's like, I didn't know what any of the musical numbers were going to be when I was working on this. Yeah.
I do feel like it's interesting how 2D, as you were mentioning, Sean, is like every single shot you build it from scratch. It's like every single shot has so much like energy that is going into it. But with 3D, all the energy goes way earlier in the process. It's like the modeling, the lighting, all of these things, and then you can just kind of play around and kind of like have way more. Shoot, what's
That's
the
a
word?
different
Like,
workflow.
that's so interesting. From our patron Kay, they ask, what makes a good director? What makes a bad director? What makes an ugly director?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not the right person to ask because I haven't worked with that many directors.
Your philosophy, though. Your take.
I think that when I am at my best as a director is when I know what's going on. I should say when I'm at my worst is when I'm indecisive, or when I when I say let's just go see what happens. I don't know. I think a director should take responsibility. I guess like to be the job of a director, especially when there's other people involved, is to be responsible for things and to say if something goes wrong, I have to make it right, and if someone's unhappy, I have to make it right, and if someone is not giving it their best, I have to figure out why that is and how to get the best out of them and keep everyone happy. That's one reason I've really stayed away from big teams, is because I'm actually not very good at that. You know, so that's one big part of the director's job, and then the other part is steering the ship and having the vision, because everyone else that works on something knows their little part, and the director is the person who knows how it all fits together and can speak with some authority on that. But that's actually, I mean, that's really different than like in studio style 2D animation, where the director is not really, it's not the master creative role that it is in like, you know, let's say live action filmmaking.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I do think I agree so much with the like decisiveness. I do feel like, especially in animation, like there's like so much of it is planning and knowing ahead of time what you need to see on the screen, and so you have to be so decisive.
And I hate that that's true, because I spent so long not planning. I seriously spent the first 10 years of my career just ripping stuff out, just doing stuff as fast as possible, no structure, no script, no storyboard, just like if I needed music, I'd improv it one take. Like, and, you know, I hit my limits. It's like, there's, you know, I wanted to do bigger things, so I had to do all the dorky stuff, like writing to-do lists and, you know, setting calendars and being organized like a nerd.
I love that, like being organized like for nerds.
I think it's frustrating because it's like, I chose the life of an artist so that I wouldn't have to have a schedule. And now it's like,
God.
oh,
yeah.
I just have a schedule. I'm just 9 to 5 in it, just like I always was gonna. Like there was no getting around it ever.
Well, at least if, yeah, for real, if you want to be productive, I don't think there's a way around that. From Instagram, Cornelia Doodles asked, "What is your favorite Cartoon Network cartoon when you made in your work? That you made in your work, I think. Like, what's your favorite piece of work that you did for some of your work at Cartoon Network? I would rephrase it that way.
I think like there's one that we didn't talk about, which is I did a little bumper for Clarence. I think that was the first thing I did for Cartoon Network.
Mm.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's really cute. It's like they're flying in this like sort of like it's 3D models of the Clarence characters, and they're in like a anime kind of Japanese fight scene, and then it cuts to them like on the playground. That was a fun one.
Did they give you boards for this one, and then you build it all in 3D?
I have no idea. I do not remember at all.
I love
it. I feel like you probably made it from scratch. I feel like that's usually how the bumpers are. But I'm curious about if you pitched them an idea.
I think I must have pitched them 3 things. Let me pull it. Let me pull it up and see what the other 2 pitches
That is
were.
so funny. I love that, like, when I listen to you, it sounds like your whole life is a blur. You're like, oh.
Well, this is, I've done so much stuff. I mean, it's like, and some of the stuff is like, I just kind of did it and set it off. Well, everyone in the world has done a lot of stuff. Like, it's just like, it just flies by, especially when it happens fast. Where it's like,
no, and I think it's especially true for like someone like you who like kind of keeps jumping between like ad work and like TV work and then like social media work. Like you were extremely active on all fronts, so that makes sense. Well, talking about you doing a million things, we have our YouTube listener Bun Bun Shark who asks, this is a long one, but it starts with, how can you multitask? Like making music and at the same time animating. How can you manage a schedule to be able to learn or to be able to do so many things? I've been trying to manage my time to practice drawing, and even that is already hard to manage. And I really want to learn music too, and I'm having trouble sorting out time for it because of college and housework plus family time. So let's get into scheduling.
I get that
management.
because, right, when you're an artist, it does... I think basically everything else in your life kind of is more important. So it's like, if you're not really fighting for it, right, your obligations as a member of a community and as a family will just like eat away at it. Managing time to learn, I don't know. I think it's like, it's something that can happen slowly. It's something that doesn't have to happen all at once. You know, you don't have to become an expert at something. 10 minutes a day, every day will lead you somewhere over the course of a year. I guess that, that would be my advice with someone who feels like they're just like drowning in time, would be like, find 20 minutes, find 20 minutes in the morning and let everyone in your life know that, hey, from 10 to 10:20, I'm not available, and put your phone away and just like do something that makes you happy and push yourself a little bit. And in a month, you'll be like, wow, I just had, 25 of those little perfect sessions and I am a little better at something now. But I mean, I don't know, because I don't really know. It's been a long time since I like intentionally was like, I'm going to learn something, or like set a time aside to learn. It's more like, I think having a project that you move towards will kind of automatically make you learn, where you come across challenges and then you look up a tutorial and then that's how you learn a new thing that you bring into your next thing.
That is so true. I think that's something that I kind of underestimated, like learning on, like on a project. Like I have been teaching myself like some software, like even like CapCut, which is not like very hard to learn, but like just doing a project that you have to do anyway and forcing yourself to like do it in another software is a great way to just kind of learn it, even though you're going to feel like, oh no, I'm losing so much time or whatever. Like there's no other way to learn in a way that sticks as much, because else it's just like you're just in a software doing nothing.
Well, that's exactly what Chom was saying at the beginning about there's so many 3D artists who are always learning. And it's one of the traps, I think, specifically of 3D, is you can learn too much and you can learn every single thing there is to know and be an expert, but then still somehow have never made anything or never discovered anything about yourself or never gotten like that thing inside you that art is for. So for me, it's like, project. And I think like, and on a similar note, I think the best way to do a project is to do something as a gift for someone. Like if you have I find it very motivating if someone has a birthday coming up. That's a great reason to write a song for someone. Or, or it doesn't even have to be a birthday. It could be just, oh, I'm going to make a 30-second animation for my partner, to make them laugh. I think focusing on one person and focusing on thinking about the moment that you present them with that gift is a really great way to move forward with a little project.
What's your favorite art gift that you've ever given?
Oh, for my friends, a couple of our friends got married a couple years ago, and my wife and I did a collaborative painting that I really liked.
That's awesome.
It was
so cool.
So the guy who's getting married, he's really into two-headed goldfish, the snack cracker. It's somewhat rare, but maybe in 1 out of every 100 packages of goldfish, there's a two-headed one that's
it's like his version of a 4-leaf clover, kind of.
Yes, exactly. So what we made was I made the 3D background of like a museum, and then printed it on a canvas, and then she painted the two-headed goldfish in the context of the museum.
That's awesome.
And we gave that to them for their wedding.
That is so cool.
What about you, V? Have you given a gift that you're fond of?
For a very long time, I didn't really think. Okay, so for a very long time, I was worried about my art being something like, what are they called? What you do in kindergarten, the noodle necklace
arts
thing.
and crafts, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my God, I thought it was anyhow, but
that
when
people wouldn't appreciate it. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, or that it was cheap some sort of way, I thought well, if I could make it with just some pencils and paper, then it's not worth a lot for some reason. But then I kind of overcame that because when I started dating my current boyfriend, I think it was for Valentine's Day or something, I found this cute little book at Muji, which is these, it's kind of like a sketchbook, but it's there's only 12 pages in it or something, and I kind of drew our most kind of cutest moments of our relationship in it. And it was really cute.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
I made so when I first started dating my girlfriend who became my wife, she was really curious about animation and loved to sit next to me while I worked. So I showed her how I made a short, and I made a short that sort of feels like an improvised conversation, and she played a character and I played a character, and I recorded us riffing, and then I edited it to be funny, and then I made really, really simple characters and mouth packs, and she sat there and I would do the acting, and then she would sit and she would plug in which mouth goes on which one.
Oh my God.
And she's not an artist. She's not an artist, but it was her first she got to make an animation with me, and that was sort of a present. It was nice.
That is awesome.
So
that's how it should be. That's how people should be making their stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I feel for me, making a comic, all the comic I started, I kind of started it as something to show my friends, and just showing your friends the story that you wrote and drew, and then them being oh, this is so funny, or I don't know, or, well, that character was so hot, or whatever. That's kind of fun, you're kind of
yeah.
It's just you're doing it for the fun of it. So great.
If anyone in the audience wants to watch it, it's called Little Sitters, and it's like a talk show where I guess if we did more episodes, it's just two characters sitting together, and a new character would be sitting with the host. Yeah, it's fun. It's just, if you look at Little Sitters, Lord Spew, you can find it.
We have a question from our YouTube listener, Hank Humble 3552. How do you feel when you see your own work in final projects? And how do you feel when things are unexpectedly cut?
Oh.
Yeah, and then there's a follow-up question, but let's start with these.
I don't know that I've had too many of those unexpected cuts, to be honest.
Stuff is so good, all of it.
No, it's just
no,
not.
No. I'm just.
I'm trying. No, I mean, it's happened for sure. I'm trying to think. I've had a couple.
You probably agree with it most of the time if it gets cut. Is that what sort of your?
It's fine for people. It's when you hand off the project, you hand it off, and it's not yours anymore. I've had a couple things where someone else did tinkering, where they changed or added sound design. Like I worked on a commercial where I thought I was doing the sound design and then they redid it and it was like it just made me like a little nauseous.
Oh yeah, you did not like what they did.
And I don't know that I didn't like what I did. I didn't like the sense of betrayal, you know.
Oh,
I
see.
I think when it hurts is when you think you had the final say and then you didn't. And then it's like, "Oh, you could it's like I wish you would have asked me because I would have done that."
I have a rough one. My first ever cartoon that I got paid to make. I made all of it. I made the soundtrack. I designed like orchestration. It was like I made like a little like game show song, like everything. And I made 3 minutes of animation from start to finish. I finished it and I turned it in. And when they posted it, it was 1.5 minutes.
Oh,
they cut out 1.5 minutes of finish, and it was for YouTube. I'm like, what? Why did you feel like you had to cut it out?
It's free.
And so they cut out 1.5 minutes of finished animation, and they replaced all my songs with stock songs.
Oh my God.
way!
And I was like, oh man,
and that is just that's just a sign of an organization where not everyone is on the same page because that's just a crazy thing to do.
Do you think they thought that you were using like copyrighted songs?
Your songs were so good that they were like, "This is the London Symphony Orchestra. We can't use
it." Yeah, Hans Zimmer's gonna strike us. Yeah. No. I don't know. But that was like it was a rude awakening. I was like, okay, stuff's gonna be like this sometimes. Oh man.
Well, I gotta say, I do think a large driver of my career is like a fear of that feeling, like a fear of being edited. And so I'm pretty constantly trying to put myself in positions where people can't do that to me. And there's obviously like huge setbacks to that. Like,
yeah.
Okay, what's a setback? What's an example of a setback to that?
Well, I think it's just there's a limit to how high you can go or how mass you can go without like a publishing company or a network or whatever who's gonna ultimately make those final decisions. But I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty lucky because Adult Swim doesn't do that. They're cool. Like
Adult Swim is like so sweet. They're very much like creator driven and they're like, just do your thing. No, that's really cool. That's really cool that you were able to find a path that like you can avoid that. Like I was just talking this morning to a buddy of mine and I was just like because I was talking about like going back and forth between like directing and then back to boards and then sometimes when you're in a position when you have say and then you go back down to the position of being the hand a little bit like you can put as much of your sensibility as you want, but then if that's not the sensibility they're looking for, then like tough luck, like you just kind of have to do what they're looking for. Like if they're like nobody smiles in the show, then nobody smiles. Like that's just how it is.
It's eating some humble pie.
And that's like, I mean, that gets right back to what you said at the beginning, which is, drawing and doing the images and doing the stories is one thing, but the actual hard part of this job is the interpersonal stuff where you have to learn to pick your battles and how to get along with people. And yeah, because we're making art, it's like you are like so exposed and like it's so hard not to be like, well, I put myself out there and put a piece of myself into this and you want to change the font, like,
do you have any tips for not necessarily politicking, but like basically fostering relationships with a good amount of give and take where you trust each other in like a client kind of or collaboration style relationship?
Yeah, I think the trust comes from spending time with people and communicating. And I think the thing that I stayed away from at the beginning of my career was like phone calls and meetings. Like I just didn't want to have them. I didn't want to get on the phone. I always felt like I would freeze up on the phone or say something stupid or show them how inexperienced I was. But if you can have a phone call with a client and, you have to do a good job pitching yourself, but really you're there to listen to them. Like, and if you can actually listen to what the client wants and like really have an understanding of them, like you will never fuck up. Like you will never, if you can see the client as a person and understand what their goals are and find a way to mix that with your goals instead of saying, I'm going to sneak something past them, like you will get it every time.
That is so huge and that is so true because I do feel like when I started like getting notes from an exec or somebody and being like, hey, do you want to like jump on a call and like kind of like talk through them? That kind of got me so much further than just being like, okay, cool, I'll address them and send you like the next
Yeah.
copy. Yeah.
Because like the classic thing in development is like the notes are not really orders. Like the notes are like a list of problems. You don't have to do what they say, but you have to address what's bothering them. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I think what used to bug me a lot, it still kind of bugs me a little, is when someone's right. You know, when someone's like, when someone is like catches me being taking a shortcut, or you know, is like, oh, this structural element isn't working, and when I know they're right, that's when I like feel the most anger. You know, because it's embarrassing.
That's so funny. It's funny because that is so funny. I'm the opposite. When somebody points out a problem and I'm like, holy shit, they're right. I agree with this. I'm like, I'm happy because I'm like, oh, this is a collaborator I can trust.
That's
Because
awesome.
I've had so many moments in my career where people give notes just to give notes,
Oh,
and it's like lateral
be involved,
notes.
like just to be
And
like I
that
had a decision here. Yeah,
Yeah, and that drives me up the fucking wall, and I have to be like, just shut up, V.
yeah.
Just
I
do the
do.
fucking no. It's like I
Yeah,
know this is just a waste of everybody's time, but you just have to do it. But it's like it's so hard. It's so hard because I'm like, ugh. But so when I have a note where it's like, hey, like this doesn't work, and let's just kind of like we need to kind of fix that problem. I'm like, hell yeah, like we're moving forward. We're
that's
making
awesome.
something better.
You are a lot more well adjusted than I am. But okay, so my other piece of advice would be, if you're like me and you take things very personally and you get really passionate, you don't have to respond to email right away.
That's so true.
That is so helpful.
That has been the probably number one cause of problems for me, is when I respond to things too quickly, and then a day goes by and I'm like, did I have to?
Yeah.
Did I have to put it all on the line like that? Did I have to say I was going to walk away from this because they wanted the chicken to be a duck instead or something? Like,
there's been so many circumstances where I'll get some like big notes, and then they'll be like, do you want to meet and talk about it more? And I'll be like, yeah, I want to talk about this right now.
I'm going down to the principal's office and I'm gonna yell at you.
and then I'm in the call and I'm like, well, it's not how I would do it.
Yeah.
But I guess we can try to do this. I still think it would be better to do it the other way. And like it just makes me come off badly. It makes me come off as inflexible, like, and bitter. And usually if you wait a day, you can be like, yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of see where they're coming from. Maybe there's like a happy medium we can reach, like, and yeah, it's hard though, because when you're in your feelings about something, art is so personal, man, and
I
it's
think
so easy
the
to
other
get in
thing
your feelings.
is, if any young people, any young men listening to this, go to therapy. You're gonna end up there. So just do it now. Like, just start going, get ahead of the game on this one. Go before something really bad happens.
Not just young men, also young women.
No,
Like
women know
everybody.
already. Men are not listening.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like I needed to go to therapy. Like I needed some sense knocked into me as well. So I feel like everybody.
Yeah,
just,
no, true.
You can afford it.
Men are not good at a lot of men are not very good at dealing with either their emotions or like how to take notes in a way that makes you feel like you're not the top dog, like the expert. Like there's a lot of ego, and I think in this kind of like getting served some humble pie, like I think that figuring out what to do with those emotions that make you feel that imposter syndrome that makes you double down and try to act like you know what you're doing extra, or that's important. So shout out to mental illness. No.
Shout out to mental illness.
To mental health. To mental health, everybody. I mean, no, but I do think I love kind of talking about that a little bit, because I feel like in this field is just like, yeah, like you were saying, Julian, it's like, all right, you're always in such a vulnerable position, and you have to be able to be vulnerable, and it's hard. And I'm still struggling with it now. Like sometimes I'm still struggling with moments where I'm like, where I'm like, oh, like kind of like inside my head. I don't
Yeah.
say it out loud,
Yeah.
but I'm like, who are you to give me notes? Like,
I think I've
you
said that
haven't
out
been
loud
around that
before,
long.
actually.
Ah, really? Oh.
No, I'm trying to think of the worst. I can't think of anything I said that's like really nasty, but I've definitely been pissy. Like,
I mean, I've been pissy too. Yeah, I've been super pissy too,
but
and it's gotten me in
that's
trouble.
the other reason I never wanted to get on the phone, because at least in email there's some deniability.
Yeah,
Where it's like,
yeah.
no, I wasn't being rude. I just talk like that.
That exclamation mark was an accident.
That middle finger emoji was not for you.
It's autocorrect. Yeah, I copy and pasted a different thing from another message, and
Hank Gumball had like a follow-up question, which was, what would be your dream IP to work on or re-envision?
I just had a good one that I was thinking about this morning. How about the green M&M?
Oh my God, that is so
She
fun.
needs her own show.
And she got kind of,
they got woke with her.
yeah, like I forget what happened. Like something like really
anymore.
They took away her sexy shoes. She's
That
wearing
was the
just
shoes.
Keds now.
Yeah.
I'm putting her back in that skanky little getup she had.
Oh,
that is
God.
so
She's
funny.
gonna be like a Betty Boop, like a classic. I don't want to work on this. I want someone else to do it. It's not my thing at all.
No, but I do think it's like it's coming back. I feel like there's this weird thing. So this is kind of something I'm noticing now being in the biz, but like we just kind of went through that moment where like girls could have no sexual attributes for some reason, no boobs, no ass, no skirt, like just like you're almost a man. And now we're finally kind of sort of coming out of
Cartoons
this, and
are
it's
getting
very
horny
recent.
again. Yeah.
It's super recent. It just, I would say, just happened, and it's so funny.
I had this weird interaction with some ad executives one time where so basically I had this project where I had to design these little construction workers, and the little construction workers were all like circles with hard hats and hands, like just with a smiley face in the center. And so I submitted those, and there was like one that had like a little mustache or something. I submitted those, 5 of them, and then they said, okay, can you do a pass of these that are more feminine? And I was like, but they are just circles. And they're like, yeah, but can you put like earrings on them, or give one of them a purse, or like give one of them
the Miss Pac-Man effect, just like a bow on it.
Like they're working on this building in little high heels, like
That's so funny.
Like they don't have ears, like just like pierce the side of their head with a ear piercing, like. And so I did this other pass, and then they were like, okay. And once I showed them that, they're like, can you put all 10 of them on a page? And then they showed that to the executives higher up, and then guess which ones they ended up circling to keep? Which 5?
The sexiest ones.
No, the original 5.
Well, doesn't that feel so good?
It's so so weird. Yeah, like they were like yeah, these are too manly. I'm like, they're they're circles.
Do you think they were like, oh, we just got to make sure we're like inclusive or something, so we really have
I think so. There was only one that had a mustache though. They were all just circles. and so when I was in this meeting, I was like, I just want to make sure I'm asking the right questions. Is there anything about this that you find feminine or not, or masculine?
And you are like, tapping into a specific person's sexual shit there,
right?
Yeah.
And I was basically dealing with the M&M's people almost, and they were like, well, instead of making the smile like this, can you make like the smile more feminine, like give them like a little curvier
lip? Oh my God,
lip.
that is so funny.
And I'm like, that's what you want? Like you want just them to have lips that are like a little bit, there's like a little sauce on it. like
that is so
but yeah,
funny.
I don't know. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Crazy.
That is what they do. That is why they get paid the big bucks at those ad agencies.
Yeah.
That is that is like a $10,000 conversation right there. If you look at the salaries of everyone involved.
And the thing is to be clear, I don't mind the idea of having the characters have diversity and have a wide range of characters so everyone feels represented when they're watching this commercial. Totally, I understand. That's totally fine. But it is interesting to try to do it with a bunch of circles, and then also to distill women down to like, oh, can you pierce the circle's ear.
I actually think this could be a good pitch for a cartoon, like the girly construction workers. Like,
True. That is good.
You know, they're like super feminine, but then they also are
kind of like kick-ass,
eating
like
lunch up on a iron beam 100 feet in the air.
You know what? I just thought of something. I know. I feel like it would be really interesting to have you recreate Gumby.
I don't even want to touch it. I have a religious.
I feel like you would do a really good job. I feel like you would do an interesting, very bright take of a Gumby world, to reimagine
I've spent
it.
So much time. I've got documents. I've written out how I would do Gumby.
Really? What? Okay, so we're so I like picked up on like some sort of
it's very special to me. I think there's
thing.
Probably one behind me in my room. There's one up on my back shelf there.
That's awesome.
But no, I can't.
Have you ever pitched it?
I don't think I can do. I think he's too
like
too sacred to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anyone should do it. Like, I think I'm sure something's in the works. Something's always in the works with this stuff. But I really thought, like, should he? It's the modern world. Instead of going into books, should he go into an iPad? Or it's like that just makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, that feels gross.
But then the '80s Gumby, I love, who he's like a rockin' farmer. Like, it's a whole different. Like,
I don't think it needs a technology update. I think
it would ruin it to make him.
If there were any screens or anything, it would be weird. I feel like just letting him, he's just in his own little world, and there's not. But that is interesting.
Kids, like new generations, are kind of starting to get away from technology a little bit. They're noticing that it's not good for them, and they're tired of it. There's like a big wave of new generations watching older shows. No, but like, shows like Twin Peaks or X-Files, where they didn't have smartphones, and it was a little bit more like, you weren't connected to everything all the time. I think
they should just show the kids the old Gumbies. I
agree.
Don't touch him. It's so perfect as is. I have this nightmare that there's like a Gumby, like he has like a Snoopy level revival, and then he's like everywhere, and then everyone's sick of him. Like, that's my guy.
I animated Gumby in 2D once for a short.
Oh my god!
I got paid to do it, and it wasn't for Gumby. It was like a parody short that a studio was having me do. So I have animated some Gumby, but not officially.
He's perfect. He's a perfect cartoon character. I mean, he's the definition. He's claymation that came to life. We love Gumby. I'd love to see a well done Gumby show. I hear rumors about what's going on in the Gumby development world. There was some nice comics that came out a couple years ago.
You have your finger on the Gumby pulse.
Oh yeah. This is I won't talk about this because it does feel like a little
sure
a little NDA. It's breaking someone else's NDA. But yeah, I talked to someone who was working on some Gumby stuff, and I was just completely way more invested in it than
so nervous, secondhand nervousness. Like you're like, oh, okay.
I'm like, well, you're gonna make sure his relationship with Pokey is friendly but prickly at the same time, and make sure that the professor's there and his frizzy white hair is trademarked. Like,
and the little block guys should be scary but not too scary. And like,
oh my god, I have this up above my desk. One of my best friends got this for me for my wedding. The Gumby Saracel.
Wow.
Whoa, that's cool. The listeners can't see this. That's not fair.
Yeah, nobody's ever gonna see it. Sorry, you had to be here. That's so funny.
Well, awesome.
It's okay. I'm gonna admit something to you guys. I've never watched an episode of Gumby.
You're so lucky because your journey starts tonight.
Worth it. I think, you know what? I think that Gumby is like, if you ever have like an animation part, like a party with animators, just put episodes of Gumby on in the background on the TV. It's like perfect because you're not hearing too much dialogue. It's very chill, and then like it's visually, it's like watching those TikToks where you see Subway Surfers underneath a video of a reaction, it's like it's like just a little stimulation over there, and that's like, I've been to a few animator parties where there's like Gumby on in the background, and I'm like, that's a good call.
That's a good call. That's so funny.
Oh my god.
We have a question from Instagram from this kid 207. Do you remember your dreams after you wake up? Do you have any recurring dreams?
I remember them if I talk about them. I have the classics. I'm back in school and I don't know my schedule. That's one I get all the time. I hate that.
Schedule stuff. You're just thinking about schedule.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's like you're in
Yeah.
6th grade and you don't know what classroom you're supposed to go to. What is the analysis on that?
I don't know, but I have that dream all the time, and like the school is huge, and like I don't remember I had that class, and you have an assignment due.
From the top of my education in psychotherapy, which I obviously did, I'm not lying, I would say you guys are probably either overwhelmed or you're maybe like, because the feeling sounds like there's like a lack of direction, and maybe it's like you have these dreams at a moment in your life when you don't really know what you're supposed to do.
Wow.
What I'm doing.
That's pretty deep. Okay.
Hell yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
okay.
Give us
that'll be $100. Thank you.
Give us a quick, a quick 2-sentence. How does someone get through creative block? How do you handle it when you're not in the mood? It sounds like you've just changed your lifestyle a little bit so that you're more disciplined rather than kind of succumbing to the creative block thing. But how do you deal with it?
I would say on a personal level, if I'm creatively stuck and I am not on an assignment, I just get away from the computer. I just say it's not happening today and try to enjoy my day. And then if it's on an assignment, I think every artist should have a greatest hits that they go back to.
Sure.
Like something that like every comedian has a type 5. Every musician has Wonderwall or some song that they know that's always good. Whatever it is, I think like you should look at all your work and find those 5 or 6 things that are like, this isn't something that I'm always excited about, but it always wins the pitch. For illustration, a lot of times it's an object with a ladder on it, or a head that's opening up and something's coming out of it. Or for me, it's this blobby particle system that I do a lot for editorial when I'm in a time crunch. Yeah, have sometime when you are feeling a little more introspective, take a look at all your work and write down your go-tos that you can have in your back pocket when you need to come through with something.
That is so smart.
Doing small series illustration that you come back to whenever you want is really nice. Like to have a thing that you like, every once in a while you put out this type of illustration or whatever. That's
helpful. It's great to have, people who do really well with this stuff where it's like, I'm going to draw every frame of Star Wars or something, or like, something that generates itself.
Yep.
That you can go to and turn your brain off. Yeah,
good
that
call.
is another good one.
That's awesome. That's great. I don't think we've had that one yet on the show, so that's some awesome tips.
We're doing a lot of firsts here.
Yeah.
Speaking of good one, this was a good one. This was a good episode.
This is great.
Yeah, that was so fun. Thank you so much.
I can't believe we just talked for like more than 2 hours.
Holy shit. Yeah, I have to pee. Let's wrap. I have to pee.
Let's wrap. So, well, that's the end of this creative blog. Julian, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Thank you guys so much. That was so fun.
It was a pleasure. And also, thanks to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor, Clemens, for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Abuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out.
If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. Another great way you can support us for free is liking, subscribing, sharing these episodes with everybody you know. Getting more eyes and ears on the podcast really helps us a lot. You can click the links in the description of this episode to follow Julian on all his social medias and also to get access to your Patreon. I've been your host, V.
And I was Sean. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.